Namaste to everyone. We will start shortly. ॐ भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः. So, the whole universe, which, let us not forget, includes you, has been made into Om. And then, as I said in yesterday's class, this is what is called Advaita Siddhi. Advaita Siddhi is seeing the truth of everything as non-dual. Non-dual. So the Siddhi means the establishing this non-duality, because this non-duality doesn't need to be established. It is in fact already there, but with the quote unquote omification of the entire universe, we have made everything one. We meaning Upanishad. Okay, yeah, not all of us together. Upanishad has made everything just one. Then one might correctly argue, what's the big deal? I can also do that. If it's just a question of doing Namakarana, I can just rename something. I can also name the whole universe. I can also say everything is just whatever it is. And so, what's the big deal? If Advaita, establishing Advaita and seeing everything as non dual were so easy, everybody would have their own naming ceremony. What is the big deal about what the Upanishad has done? Well, the big deal is that the word Om already comes laden with wonderful meanings. It's not just some random word that has been picked out from the sky and then everything has been named as Om. Om has a history. Om has an abiding presence in every Upanishad. Omkara as Pranava Upasana features in the Mundaka Upanishad. And Upasana means meditation. So, this Pranava is another way of saying Om. Fancier way of saying Om is Pranava. Prakarshena Yat Navaha. That which is ever new. Because that's the power of Om. You say Om and you are at home. Where? with yourself. It comes back. Om for the Hindus is like that little bell for the Buddhists. It's just amazing. In Buddhism, there is a very rigorous discipline and training, which is very wonderful. I love it. And there, what happens is, no matter where you are, when the bell is heard, it's an opportunity to come back to yourself. No matter where the mind is, ting, you come back. And so for us, that ting is, oh, ding ding. This is what it is. Oh, because there is a history. There's a very long, rich history of the Upanishads using the Omkara in very, very different ways. So, as I was saying, in the Mundaka Upanishad, we have, you know, we have Pranava. The Omkara is the Lakshya. Lakshya means the target. And who is this? The one with the bow and arrow. Hunter. The Jiva is the hunter. Why is the Jiva a hunter? Jiva is an experience hunter. Keeps looking for this experience, that experience, whatnot, and comes to the spiritual world also hunting. I need a spiritual experience. Have some spirit, okay? That's all. Then it will become spiritual. That's all you can say. So this hunting vritti, the hunter buddhi hasn't gone, and the person has entered into the Upanishad, and to that person, what will the poor Upanishad do? The poor Upanishad will give a kind of a, what's the word for it? Will give a example from the hunting world. So that board with a red dot, circle with a red dot inside, bang in the middle. That is Om. And then the hunter, you know, Sharavat Tanmayo Bhavet. So you look at the arrow, how tall and straight it is. And you also become tanmaya. Tanmaya means completely focused on the arrow, no, on the target, which is Om. And then, shoot the arrow. And then what is the arrow? Then we find out the arrow is also Om. The target is Om. And of course, what is the bow? Another big Om. And then who is the hunter? What is the truth of the hunter? Come on, you know the answer by now. Oh, that's all. It's all one big Om. And this is what is there in the Mundaka Upanishad. The practice of Omkara Upasana has an abiding presence in the tradition. And then again in even though Nachiketa is hardly 8 years old, Lord Yama gives him Omkara Upadesha after giving him the runaround for, half the book, with all these boons and everything. And this fellow is jumping up and down, getting impatient. So each time Lord Yama praises him, Nachiketa says, enough, alam, alam, give me this, what I've asked for. That which is beyond time, that which is same thing here. Yat bhutam, yat bhavyam here, and there which anyatra dharmat, anyatra adharmat, anyatra asmat kritat, akritat, anyatra bhutacha bhavyacha, yat tad vadasi, yat tad, yat tad janasi, tad vada, whatever you know, you please tell me. There, again, same thing. And he says, okay, I'll tell you in brief. And he keeps his word. Om iti etat. That's what he says. That which you want to know is understood by understanding. I'll just tell you in brief. It's a one monosyllabic word. And we have seen that Lord Yama was not, some people are like that, asking them to talk is like a big thing. You have to squeeze the words out of them. How are you? Fine. And, it's like the teenager. They don't say much. How was your day? How was your day at school? Okay, that's all. And there is a little bit of a shoulder action there. You can interpret whatever you want. It's completely open for all kinds of interpretations. Do whatever you want, no problem. And so, what are you going to do with the rest of the day? I don't know. Just hanging out, just just like that. Just vague monosyllabic answers. But Lord Yama was not like that. Till now, he has been waxing eloquent. In fact, he takes up so many pages in the Kathopanishad at the beginning. And then suddenly, cat got his tongue or what? He says, I'll tell you briefly. And I'm just going to say, Om Ityetat. Finished. And then he says a few more things. एतद्धि एव आलम्बनम् एतद् आलम्बनं परम् एतद् आलम्बनं श्रेष्ठम् एतद् आलम्बनं ज्ञात्वा ब्रह्मलोके महीयते. It is an alambana. Alambana means it's an aid. The Om is a useful aid to connect to that which is the ultimate. That is the bala, that is the strength with which the Mandukya Upanishad has renamed the entire Jagat, including you, as Om. That's how. Not just some word was plucked out of, a made up word was given and then said, okay, now you are non-dual. No, the Om is already there. And it has a very big history. And you see, and it is a word with a meaning. And we'll be looking at the meanings today. And it is a word with a meaning. And this word with a meaning that has a holy association. Om is Bhagavan. And before we start looking up and wondering where this Bhagavan is, the Shankara in the introductory Bhashya to the Mandukya Upanishad says, you know, Bhagavan is where you make the gesture for the self. And what is the gesture for the self? Aham. You touch the heart. Me. Who did this? Me. Who is going to listen to Mandukya Upanishad? Me. That little touch of the heart. That is the place of Om. That is Bhagavan. Adi Shankara says. And this is what is the beauty of this Om. It is a word which has a meaning, which can be looked at on number of levels. And even in the Shastra, it operates on numerous levels, which we need to look at before we go into any further, because we have to understand what is this Om. If I am Om, if the Jagat is Om, if Bhagavan is Om, then I need to understand what is this Om. And so grammatically first, it comes from the word avati rakshati. That which protects is Om. And for this ava, a pratyaya is added. Pratyaya means what? A suffix. And what is the suffix? Manin. The in goes away, in goes out. And then so what do we have? Man. So then we have the word avaman. And how is this Om? It is not Om at all. But then there is some grammatical operation, don't worry about it, called te he lopaha. And so the un goes away. Okay. So this is what Sanskrit is like. Half the things go away. But they do their job and go away. And like this quip pratyaya. It equips the word with an agent status and then it goes away. Like the word Upanishad has got quip pratyaya. Where is quip? You don't say Upanishad kvi. No, nothing. The quip has gone. Quip has equipped the Upanishad to mean Upanishadar, meaning the agent of that which destroys samsara. So likewise here also, the un goes away, avam. Then there is another rule that, when there is this manin pratyaya used, then we have what is called a samprasarana. The va becomes u. That is what is samprasarana. Okay. Yeah. So this is not a grammar class. Thank God. So we are not going to go into any of these things. This is just to know. If nothing, hopefully you'll forget about it. But if you don't forget about it, you can impress a few friends in your Zoom gatherings, because that's the only kind of gatherings we are having. Okay? In your non Vedanta Zoom gatherings, you can impress a few friends. Do you know the origin of the word Om? Yeah, yeah, really? Tell. See, become famous. And so, so now, uh, and then we have the word has avam, it has become. And then, of course, when and u are staring at each other inside one word, it has to undergo sandhi, not an optional sandhi, a compulsory coming together. So a plus u becomes om, om. This is what the whole thing is. And even though there is akara, ukara, and makara, it should not be pronounced as aum. Okay? Because our jaws, unlike that of cattle, were not meant to move sideways. That's only for chewing, cud chewing, ruminating animals, the jaws move sideways. So you cannot say aum. You're not supposed to do that. Then this is what it is in the process of understanding Om. We are also sweeping away some popular misunderstandings. One of it is that you have to chant Aum. That's the wailing siren somewhere. It is it is not it is not the holy sound. Because the words, when the syllables are looking, when aksharas are looking at each other, then it is just one word, Om. So this is the, grammatically speaking, this is what it means, and this is that which is a source of protection. And that's why the sadhus are told to chant it all the time, because their life is for others and they are bestowing and sharing that protection with everybody. Please chant Om. And another uh, miracle, magic of this Om, since it refers to everything, then then you are when you keep chanting Om throughout the day, when you have nothing to do, when you're cooking, cleaning, going, driving, you can keep saying Om, Om, Om. The result of that is sudden vairagya. It is very powerful. You can try it and see, and then you can drop chanting it as soon as you feel like booking a ticket to the Himalayas. Okay, if you're not ready for that, you can stop chanting it. Don't worry, the feeling will go away. So this is what the whole thing is. There is some kind of a dispassion that the word Om engenders, because Om is that which not only is everything but transcends all those things. Everything has as though come from Om, as though sustained by Om, as though resolves into Om. So Om is really that which transcends everything. And so, when one is in the place of no name, no form, and one is in that place, even if one is understanding is not completely, uh, what is that, paripakwa, there is, it's not completely fruition understanding, it's a haphazard, half-baked understanding. Yet, Om delivers, the chanting of Om delivers, you know, vairagya, makes you turn away from samsara, which is why there are rules that women should not chant, oh, whole society depends on the labor of women, and who will take care of the children? If women said, okay, where is my kamandalu? I need to fill it with water and off I go. And who is going to cook? Who is going to clean? Therefore, the people who wrote the Dharma Shastras, all men. Okay, yeah. So the people who wrote the Dharma Shastras said, We don't recommend that women chant Om. Again, Rudram also. Rudram also gives Vairagya. And these two things, the sannyasi has to keep chanting Rudram and keep chanting Om. And this is the recommendation for in the Sannyasa Upanishad for the sannyasi to keep chanting Rudram, even in the Kaivalya Upanishad. Keep chanting Rudram. And again, women should not chant Om, women should not chant Gayatri, women should not chant. All this has come because of certain division of labor exigencies, no other reason. And if one is not ready for that kind of Vairagya which Om gives, you can still enjoy the benefits of Om by attaching it at the beginning of every mantra. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So there is Om, Nirguna, transcendental, no name, no form, no antecedents, no precedents, nowhere to go, nothing to do. Om. You are with yourself as consciousness, as awareness. And then what? Namo Bhagavate. Now that Om has got a particular form, Bhagavan, equipped with 6 bhagas unto that Om in this form. And who is that? Vasudevaya, Lord Krishna. This is how one gets the benefit of Om, along with the contemplation, chanting the mantra of the Ishta Devata. So this Om is very, very powerful, extremely powerful. But this is this is the force it has in the Shruti itself. And so one more thing we see is that Om is a name given to that which is nameless and formless. Bhagavan. Om is a name for Ishvara, who in her essential being is, is a conscious being without name, without form. So therefore, Om becomes what is called Abhidhana. Abhidhana means name. But that name reveals something, correct? Like the name Rama reveals Lord Rama. And if I say, I pray for the grace of Lord Rama to be always present in my life. Supposing I say like this, then it's not that I'm invoking the name Rama, not the Nama I'm invoking that which is indicated by the name Nami, Namin. And who is that Namin? The one who comes running when you say Rama. That is the one. The Lord who is there to, to help the devotees and answers the prayer. That is the one that you're calling. You're not interested in just the name. And similarly, Om is the Abhidhana, is a name. And then what does this name refer to? This is a very interesting discussion. What does this name refer to? Array, we've already seen this. Everything. So the Nami is everything. The whole universe plus the creative force of the universe, plus the one who is sitting and crying in the corner saying, I don't control the universe. This Jiva also is included in the Abhidheya. Abhidheya means that which it refers to is called Abhidheya. So there is Abheda. Abheda means non-difference. Between what? Abhidhana, the one that is the name, and the one that is referred to by the name are one and the same thing. A word and its meaning are connected naturally. Because if I say pot, you think of pot. Immediately you think of pot. So the word pot and the name pot are both, the meaning of the word pot and the name pot are both connected. And similarly, Om and the meaning of the word Om fully and completely connected, totally connected, without anything there. And so, therefore, this this Om was already told encompasses the past, encompasses the present, embraces the future. And if there is something, yat asti, yadi asti, what? Trikalatitam, that which is beyond the scope of time, that which we can dare to call timeless, that which doesn't come under the matrix of time and space. Tadapi omkaraha eva. That also is Om alone, not Home Alone. Okay, that was a movie. This is Om alone. That also is Om. And so here, this is something which is very interesting. So Trikala Titam, I can barely think about the three periods of time. I can barely wrap my mind around this concept called past and then present and then future. It is such a vast swathe of time. It is so huge. And then on top of that, I'm, asked to conceptualize something that is beyond time. And how do I look for this? Where is this beyond time? Is it a place? Because time and place are so connected in the mind that when you say it is beyond time, the next question that comes in the mind is, where does it exist? Where does this timeless uh, condition exist? So when you ask where, you're asking for what? Space. So here beyond time means also beyond space. So that question is not even entertained, not even valid. We have to try again. Beyond time means what? Beyond time, we can, to relate to this concept, we can say the observer of time, the one who is counting all the resentments from the past. I don't like this one. I don't care for this one. That one did this to me. This one did that to me. Must be in the last life also they had done something. This one is mean. That one is horrible. So I'm counting all I'm reckoning everything, nursing the resentments. Like, in the nursery, you go with a little bit of, a small little pair of scissors and prune this and cut this and everything, and then put some little, very, very expensive, what is that, fertilizer. You put some fertilizer, and then, and then you sprinkle some water and do all kinds of things. And so, like this, you go into that, into your greenhouse, which is the past. And then you nurse all the things that never went your way, all the ragas, dveshas that have wilted, and you're trying to bring it back to life. Nothing is working. All that is there, the only things that seem to be thriving are the cactuses, all thorny and full of, all bare and thorny. And in fact, they nurse themselves, they don't even need water. Once in a while, you just have to show them some water. Achamanam, you know, and that's all you do. That's all, you just sprinkle some water, that's all you do. And then this is the past. And then what? And then let's say I come into another room. This room is kind of bare, and I'm just sort of here, being in an empty room. It's because the present is full of possibilities. Empty means what? Empty of pre existing conditions, empty of name, empty of form. Empty doesn't mean zero, okay? And so Let's say from this greenhouse full of cacti and everything. Is it cacti or cactuses? I suppose both are okay. So it's full of all these thorny plants, and then plants that are wilting, and others that are nurtured and nourished and nursed. And then I come into this empty room full of possibilities. And then I go into another room called the future, which is so bright, very bright. And let's say I go straight from the green room, greenhouse to the future room. So bright, blindingly bright. I need, sun goggles. Because that's how everybody imagines the future. Otherwise, there's no point in life. So if you've made a decision to continue living, what do? You paint the future wonderful colors. Right now, life is terrible, but in the future, soon, it's going to look a lot different. I can feel it coming. I can see the brightness. And so you are in a room, yellow room full of bright things, wonderful things. And then there are posters, collages from, made from the scrapbook of your mind. It is all there. You have visualized the future. And then also the first room full of the nursery of resentment. Oh, the past. Oh, and the present room empty of name, form, right now, right here. Oh, sometimes you come from the nursery into the room that is called the present, and then what, you drag in a few leaves and everything. So the past is shadowing the present. Oh, and then you go into the bright room full of possibilities to be actualized. Oh, and then Trikala Tita, where is that? Where? Where is this Trikalatīta? Where is it an entity? Is it a place? So is timeless. Trikalatīta means timeless. Okay, so is Trikalatīta, is it a place? No, it's not one more room, because we have gone through three rooms: past room, present room, future room. There is not one more room called Trikalatīta room. That makes no sense. That which is Trikalatīta, that which is beyond time, is free of time. And that which is free of time is naturally free of space, because time and space are in tandem, they operate together. And so there is no time. And then if there is no time, there is no space as a constrictor. So you cannot look for the timeless in a particular location. That is so silly. And neither can you look for the timeless to arrive. So I'm going to sit and wait for timeless to arrive. That means what? Timeless will come in time. Then how is it timeless? If it's going to come at 4 o'clock tomorrow, then how is it timeless? It is still coming under the spate of time, under the spell of time. And in fact, that which arrives cannot be free of time. That which departs, departs in time. That which arrives, because then you say ETA, estimated, what is that? Estimated time of arrival. Estimated time of arrival, ETA. This is text language, SMS language. I'm headed over there. I'm coming to visit you. What's the ETA? What time do you expect to get here is too long to write. What's your ETA? This is in the train timetable, ETA. You know, in Indian stations, ETA. It's always, actually it should be GTA. It should be a guesstimated time of arrivals, because Indian trains are notorious for being late. Sometimes they arrive the following day. You know, buses also are like that, especially in rural areas. And then one time I got caught, I was waiting for a bus in a village, and then never came, never came, never came. And so I said, when is today's bus coming? Because I was told there's going to be one bus every day. One bus. That's all it is. That's how much very remote village. So when is today's bus coming? It'll come. It'll come. Some people who are passing by, and there was nothing to indicate that it was a bus stop. This was just based on Shraddha that this is the bus stop because people had said this is where the bus stops. So complete and total trust, Shraddha. I stood there for hours. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. No bus came. And then I thought, okay, it's late. It's late. It's late. I dare not move because I might miss the bus. It could just come and go. And nobody else is there. It may not even stop. So I had to be there. And then people thought this city person, whatever, they're just wasting their time. And then somehow, as I was standing there for maybe a couple of hours, I don't remember, then suddenly everything came to light. Two people pushed their carts, and came and stood there. It became a big scene. And one person opened a little, a cachet in the cart, and then a stove came out, a pan came out, water from a bottle was put in that, chai was starting to be made, and then another place some snacks were being warmed up to give, and then one biscuit tin came out, and another tin full of another bowl full of bananas, and all these fruits came out. Whoever wants anything, it was right there. And in 2 minutes, a snack stand along with chai opened up, and the other cart a lady pushed, and she started to. She unveiled a lot of flowers, and she started to string the flowers. So I said, "Okay, action!" And then two other people very leisurely straddled down the road and stood in the same place. Ah, I felt so happy. So when the bus came, I said, "Is it going here?" They didn't know because I wanted to go to that place. And then I said, "Is it today's bus?" And they all shook their head vehemently because I was instructed, "Get on today's bus." So then I just stood there. I was so woe begone. I said, "Oh, I can't. It's not today's bus. Who knows where it's going?" It had no sign, no number, nothing. And then so I let it go. And then the flower lady was just said, "What's wrong with you? Why didn't you get on the bus?" I said, "They told me it's not today's bus." "Oh, it was yesterday's bus that came today." So, so looking for Trikala Tita is something like that. waiting, waiting at some bus stop and hoping that Trikala Tita will come. And Trikala Tita cannot be an experience in time. It cannot be something that happens to you. Suddenly, I have been enlightened by what? Trikala Tita experience. It's not an experience because an experience is just like an avastha, a state. A state is, by definition, something that you get into and then something you get out of. That's why people say when they are feeling restless, they say, "Don't talk to me now, I'm in a state." Thank God you realize that. That's wonderful. So this is what the whole thing is. So the Trikalatita cannot be part of time in the sneakiest of ways because it cannot arrive. Why cannot it arrive? There's only one reason it cannot arrive. Perhaps it's already here. That's the only reason it doesn't arrive. And if it's already here, it won't go either. If it doesn't have ETA, it doesn't have estimated time of departure. ETD is also there. ETD, na vidyate yasya. ETA, na vidyate yasya. That which doesn't have either estimated time of departure, like the past, like the future, that which doesn't have an estimated time of arrival either. Why? Because it is there all the time. Where is this there? You keep saying there, there, there. Where is this there? We say there, but it's not a location. It is centered in the same place. We are constrained to use the word place. It is recognized. It doesn't live there. It is recognized in the same place where you recognize your name. That same buddhi, which cognizes everything in the universe, cognizes itself. That cognition is Trikalatita. That cognition is Trikalatita. Cognizer is bound by time and space. Object of cognition bound by time and space. Means of cognition, means of knowledge that we have been talking about every day, bit by bit, bound by time and space. Cognition itself, awareness, consciousness. Awareness of what? Nothing in particular. Just awareness. Nothing in particular. And so this is what is Trikala Tita. And it cannot be outside of you. You know, sometimes you say, oh, you come in the crowd, and the person is not sure, they look around. No, you. Similarly, you are the one that is free of time, the one that is weeping, thinking oneself to be time bound, is indeed free of time. Trikalatita is not freedom from some experience, or it is not a special moksha experience that you get into, because remember, whatever you get into, you get out of. Then we have a very unenviable situation. Anir moksha prasangaha. Moksha is not possible because Trikalatita is one more experience. And if moksha is not possible, Mandukya becomes anartha. Anartha. Mandukya becomes anartha, useless. And so Shastra becomes anartha. And the teachers, the Vedanta teachers, have no job and no job satisfaction either. This is what happens. And so therefore, and the jiva's life itself becomes anartha. The life of the person is to understand this truth. And if this truth is not a truth, because it's moksha is a big lie, because it comes and goes. We need something that doesn't come and go. And the one who is looking for that thing which doesn't come and go, like me waiting on that bus stop looking for the bus. and and so this is, waiting for something to come, waiting for something to come, waiting for the timeless to come. And the one that is waiting, the waiter is the one. Waiter doesn't mean the one who waits tables, okay? The one, wait plus er, the one who is lying in wait, that is the one that happens to be Trikalatita. Trikalatita is not objectifiable, is not an object. Then what is it? Is it the subject? And here, generally, I would say yes, because that's one way of catch hold of this. But since we are studying Mandukya, I will say no, it's not the subject either. Ayyo, where to go from here? It's not the object, I understand, but it's not the subject, because when you say subject, the word subject is a relational noun. It is related to the objects. As opposed, it's got an oppositional reality. It's a relationship to the object. That which is not object is the subject. So this is how in Vedanta, baby Vedanta 001, we have been going around. Goo goo gaga, baby Vedanta. And what does baby Vedanta say? Baby Vedanta says, you are not the objects, you are the cognizer, the witness, aka subject. The subject is never subject to objectification. Oh, ye mortal objects, I am the immortal subject. So it's a very relational understanding. That means what? If this is absolutely and ultimately true, I need the objects as an oppositional prop in order to justify my own existence. Take away the objects, it's like the objects are a pair of crutches. The subject doesn't have legs. And then take away the objects, the subject falls. The subject is not an entity to talk about. But that is not the case. So this is a very quick graduation, an unplanned and a quick graduation where you have to grow up in understanding. So I'm not the objects. So Trikalatita is not found in objects, and I'm not the subject either. Then what am I? I just told you already. You are Om. What is Om? Trikalatita. What is Trikalatita? Om. But then what is Om? Which is Trikalatita? It is you. It is the content of the subject. It is the truth of the subject. It is because of which the subject shines as the subject, that which makes the subject subject, that which makes the object object, that which makes the means of cognizing the subject and the object, subject and object, without becoming any one of them, is you, is Om. This is what it is. Yat trikalaatitam tadapi omkarah eva. So where is this trikala? You have to make the gesture that Adi Shankara asks you to make. What is that? You touch the heart gently, he says. Trikalatita, timeless, timeless. That is you, free of time. That's how you can go from room to room. You go from the what is that, greenhouse, to the empty room, and to the room of the bright future, and then you forget to reckon the one that is moving around freely. Puratraye kridati. Moving around in the past, in the present, in the future freely, without being affected by any one condition, any one piece of time. In the Kathopanishad, this timelessness has a very nice description. It is described in terms of a plate of food. So there is rice and dal and some little condiment. Achar. Achar means what? What is that called in English? Pickle. Some chutney, pickle, something to just make the rice and dal come to life. And so the jnani is sitting down for a meal. Jnani means the one who knows I am Trikalatita is sitting down for a hearty meal. Yasya brahma cha kshatram cha ubhe bhavatah odanam. Odanam means food, meal. So what is the rice and dal? Those are the stratifications of society, Brahmana, Kshatriya, etc. in those times. That is what was the stratification, the hierarchies in society. And the Brahmana and Kshatriya being at the top of the hierarchy, those two, the cream of the crop is taken. Yasya brahmacha kshatrancha ubhe bhavatah odhanam. So the person mixes up the rice and dal. And what is the rice and dal here? Brahmana and Kshatriya, okay? Not that the jnani is turning into a cannibal. No, but it is a metaphor. It's a very, very interesting metaphor. I just love this verse. This mantra is so beautiful. it illustrates this and brings it home in a way that is very easy to understand, because everybody at heart is a foodie. So this really speaks. So the ease with which you enjoy a nice meal, meaning what? It disappears from the plate and disappears into you. That's the whole idea. So they, all the society rules, the bureaucracy and the how to's and the discipline. This is how the Brahmana should be greeted. This is how the Kshatriya should be treated. This is what should be done. All that is just disappearing into this timeless being. All stratifications of time disappear. And the pickle here is Mrityu. Mrityu here is again another aspect of time. Antakaha, the one that ends, one that puts an end to everything. Mrityuhu, death. And here Lord Yama is, cracking a joke on himself because he's the one narrating this. He has a very nice sense of humor. And so he says, Mrityuhu upasechanam yasya kaitha veda yasya saha. So he says, the death is, at least the Brahmana Kshatriya were a meal. Death is just not even looked at. It's a little bit of chutney that is there just to enhance the meal. So, in other words, time and place have disappeared from whose plate, meaning in whose reckoning. And even now we talk like this. Oh, shall we get together tomorrow? No, 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 my plate is full. So here, the Jnani's plate is not full, it is emptied. Emptied of time, emptied of space, emptied of stratifications, emptied of divisions, emptied of hierarchy. All that is there is Om. You see that? This is what, and that Om is oneself. This is what is Trikalatitaha. It's not something to look for. It's not an experience, because every experience is in time. And therefore, what we call moksha is not something that's going to arrive in time, because whatever arrives in time, has Lord Yama's sticker expiration date on it, stamped and branded. Yeah, it has a shelf life, starting with this body. Sometimes, sadly, the mind goes before the body. We all pray fervently for that not to happen. And that's why everybody is, over harvesting all the antioxidants and eating them. So this is what the beauty of this discussion is. Trikalatita cannot come. And if it cannot come, it certainly cannot go. And that which neither comes nor goes, it has to be centered on you. It cannot be outside of you. Because you cannot say, there goes a wonderful Trikala Sita. I'd like a piece of that, please. It cannot be made into pieces. And it cannot be other than you, because if it's other than you, you are delimiting Trikalatita. Trikalatita is delimiting you. There is no Advaita Siddhi, there is only Dvaita. So this division is swallowed up like the meal of the Jnani, where all the social stratifications, the cultural, what should I say, bureaucratic disciplines, rituals, time and space are just eaten up, burped, a burp of satisfaction, follows. Oh, this is what it is. And so this is, the power of this Om. Even an ununderstood Om is so much, because the Shastra has loaded it with all these meanings. Alambana. Alambana means, first it is Abhidhana. We saw that. Abhidhana means it's a name with the meaning. And then in the Kathopanishad, It is the Omkara is revealed as Alambana. Alambana means an aid. An aid to what? Om. Same thing like in the Mundaka Upanishad. The target is Om, the arrow is Om, the one who is releasing the arrow is Om, the bow is Om, and Pranavo Dhanuhu, that is how the mantra starts. And so everything is Om, Om, Om. And so this is what is Alambana. Alambana means I make use of this Om. And that is the power of naming everything as Om. Instantly, subject disappears as a separate entity. The subject is seen as, as an incidental attribute to this Om. Like from the standpoint of clay, pot is an incidental attribute to clay because clay can be there in so many forms, even in the form of a clogged up head. So the clay can be there in so many forms. And then pot is just in one of those many forms. Clay need not take a form. Clay can just remain by itself without undergoing any change. So, from the standpoint of the clay, pot is an incidental attribute, a value added attribute, and as though attribute. Because without it, it's, whether the pot comes or goes, it makes no difference to clay. Same thing. In the Chandogya, we see this. Shvetaketu's first example given by the teacher Uddalaka was the whole world of earthenware, one clay, many pots. And if you understand clay, pots are all understood. One clay. But then how many pots? Pot number one, pot number two, three pot, four pot, five pot, six pot, seven pot, eight pot, nine pot. Like this, you can keep on going. You count things in the universe that need not be counted. And then ultimately, everybody forgets to count oneself. And that is who is Trikalatita. Trikalatita is a conscious entity. Oh, that is what is Trikalatita also. And so, this, so when we say it is neither subject nor object, that doesn't mean that you have to look for some special entity. Subjecthood is an incidental attribute to Om. Like even pot number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. are incidental attributes from the standpoint of clay. Trikalatita is free of being subject, is free of being object, but the object and subject are not free of that which is signified by Trikalatita, which is Om. Om is free of subject, Om is essentially free of object, but the status of object and subject depend on Om for their existence. Just like from the standpoint of the pot, clay is not incidental. Clay is intrinsic to the pot, but pot is incidental to clay. That I think should make this clear. The second example that Shvetaketu is given is that of gold. One gold, million ornaments, so many ornaments, all kinds of rings come into the picture. Ear ring, nose ring, finger ring, and then what else? And then other lets, anklet, bracelet, chain, all these things. They're all there. And then each one has a complex. The nose stud has a very big complex. Ayyo, what kind of karma it is. Winter. And this lady is keeping on sneezing all the time. Why do I have such a flamboyant prarabdha full of phlegm? What is wrong with me? And look at the chain, so cherished. And wherever she goes, she keeps touching her chain, and she wraps it nicely. It has not even lost its shine. I am on the one hand battered by the sun, and on the other hand, all this phlegm. And then what a life I'm having. I just don't like it. Oh Lord, next life, what? Make me a chain, please. Enough of, so much phlegm. I'm drowning in that stuff. So unhygienic, so terrible. And I'm supposed to be made of gold. And here I'm just wallowing in this stuff. What horrible. Release me from this life. Tathastu. Lord Vishnu says, okay, no problem. And Vishnu didn't have a problem of where to, how to make this. If I make this nose stud into a chain, what will happen to the chain? He didn't have a problem because the chain secretly underneath the sari and everything completely protected. It was having its own secret problems. Nobody looks at me. Nobody loves me. And I have such wonderful gems studded, and I'm an heirloom. Nobody sees how costly I am. And this stupid lady is a hypochondriac. And the little breeze blows and she just, wraps herself like a mummy. What's wrong with her? And then nobody is able to appreciate me. Nobody loves me. And look at that stupid nose stud. So small it is. But then each time she turns her head, it glitters and glimmers. And this nose stud, she thinks too much of herself. Something has to be done to change this. I'm going to ask the Lord. I'm going to pray. Oh Lord. And you know the rest of the prayer. It's a no brainer. Make me into the nose stud. And then Vishnu says, are you sure? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've decided. Okay, tathastu. And if Lakshmi, goddess Lakshmi, okay, if goddess Lakshmi says, I don't know what we'll do tonight. We can't go out because of Corona Sura. And so I don't know what we'll do tonight. And Vishnu says, just focus on the life story of the nose stud that has become the chain, and the chain that is becoming a nose stud as we speak in their next lives. And that will be live entertainment for you. Don't worry. I'll bring the popcorn and we'll just watch it. So then when we watch it through the eyes of Mahalakshmi and Mahavishnu, you see the humor in the situation. And the first 2 days, the chain, which is now the nose stud, is, struts around very happy. Oh, yes, I needed some sun. I had become pale and without vitamin D, just completely starved for sunlight. And then the woman did what she knew how best to do. She took out a hanky and blew into it, and the poor chain that had been so protected had a little heart attack. It didn't know what had happened. It had no clue. It just came out of the blue. What is this? What's going on? Was it an earthquake? Was it a tsunami? What is this? EU, what is this that that is near my feet, just drowning everything? It has come up to my neck. And if my neck was not on the other side of the nostril, then I would be completely in this. What is this stuff? And then reality dawns. Empirical reality, okay? You have to be careful in Vedanta class. Empirical reality dawns. And then the chain that is now the nose stud says, what did I do? My mother always told me, be happy with what you have. Don't go for all these things. I never listened to her. And look at what has happened. And then, if we change the channel to watch what is happening to the nose stud, our little, tiny, perky little nose stud that is now a chain. Let us see what happened to that one. Well, like the chain that became a nose stud, the nose stud that became a chain also said in the first few hours, yeah, this is more like it. I'm getting my due. Now, before I was tiny, overlooked. Now I'm big. Before I had only one little diamond. Now I have many, many diamonds and rubies and sapphires and turquoises studded. And I'm occupying the same place with Adi Shankara says the eye is referred to right above the heart. So this is a very special place, and I'm occupying that space. How nice! And then suddenly, the nose stud that has now become the chain the necklace could not breathe. What is that? I'm hyperventilating. What's going on? I can't breathe. Stupid lady, take off this scarf, take off this muffler. That's why it's called muffler, because it's muffling me and my expression. Take it off now. I demand it. I command you to take it off. She doesn't know the language of the ornaments. She doesn't speak ornamentese. Okay. So she is clueless what they are doing all over her body. And so she is just she is just clueless. And the nose stud says, I know I was wallowing in all kinds of unsavory fluids, but nonetheless, I had my place. Oh, oh Lord, I wish I would become a nose stud again in my next life. And then what? The 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 chain that is now the nose stud has a similar prayer. Oh Lord, make me into the chain again. And Goddess Lakshmi reaching for the popcorn says, is this for real? What's going on? You know, this is just entertainment. This is why, please put them out of their misery, she says. Well, I'll do one better. Since they already seem to have a human mind, let's put them in human bodies so that next life they can study Vedanta, forget fighting with the chain and the nose stud and the ring and the bangle and the anklet and all these things. Put them in human bodies. Let them be adhikari bodies, ready to listen to Vedanta. This is a very costly mistake. Not knowing oneself as Om is a costly mistake, because one completely identifies with every passing feeling, every passing, whim, every passing fancy, everything. And in fact, whatever you watch passes. That is what it is. And so this is what happened. So not knowing themselves as gold was a costly mistake for the ornaments, just as so too not knowing oneself as Om is an extremely costly mistake. For who? For all the jivas, for the people. Very, very, very costly mistake, and it has to be rectified. How is it to be rectified? We'll see how it is in the next mantra. The next mantra gives a certain, it will take us to, it will take us to another level of graduation when we are barely understanding that we have graduated. We have graduated from seeing myself as I am the witness, I am the subject. All that is gone now. No subject, no object, no time, no space. Om. That which is signified by the word Om is Trikala Tita. It is you. Past is Om, present is Om, future is Om. That which is beyond time is Om. Everything is Om. That which is timeless is Om. And that Om, as we have seen, it cannot be anything other than you. Now, the next mantra, mantra number two, it looks like as though someone else wrote it. Suddenly, it looks like as though it was borrowed from some other Upanishad. But no, it belongs to the Mandukya Upanishad alone. And what does it say? Sarvam hi etat brahma, ayamatma brahma, soyamatma chatushpat. So forget soyamatma chatushpat, that we'll see later. Sarvam hi etat brahma. And what did the last mantra say? Om, Ong, Sarvam Omkarah Eva. So idam sarvam, Om iti etad aksharam idam sarvam. And here, sarvam hi etat and idam are synonyms. It's one and the same. Sarvam hi etat Brahma. Now, I have barely been able to wrap my mind around the fact that everything is Om. Idam Sarvam. I have a formula that I have painstakingly written down. Eh, Idam Sarvam, all this, and a big equal sign, Om. And with great difficulty, I wrapped my mind around the meaning of Om. Only to hear in the next mantra, put Om by the wayside. We'll come back to that later. Grow up a little more, stand tall to assimilate this new fact. And what is the new fact? All this is Brahman. Where did this Brahman come? What is this Kim Tat Brahman? What is this Brahman? Where did it come from? What is the connection between Om and Brahman? Om is also Brahman because we already said all this is Om. And then when I say all this is Brahman, does it include Om or not? Come on. Of course it includes Om. Ayyo, what should we do now? I think we should say the closing mantra and procrastinate. Keep it for another day. Okay. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्तिः 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 हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ. Yeah, I will take questions if there are any. There is one here from Nancy. Om is when one is neither a subject nor an object, and Om is all that there is. Subject is Om, object is Om, and that which lends its presence to subject and object without becoming any one of them. That is what is Om. That Om is you. Okay. Any other questions? You can unmute yourself and talk, or you can type in the chat pod. Snake rope. One bada question is there. Snake rope to explain mithya, etc. Pot clay to explain cause effect. Effect uh, effect is in the cause, but not vice versa. Avasthatraya prakriya, three states to explain consciousness as being fundamental to experience Maya and clay pot. Would it be right to use the above analogies in a limited sense to explain the respective aspects of Brahman? Yeah, you can say that. Your understanding is sound. Yeah. Snake rope to illustrate mithya, pot clay to illustrate Karana Karya Prakriya, and Avasthatraya Prakriya to talk about the invariable, no, I won't use the word fundamental, I would use the word invariable consciousness. And that inheres all the three states. Yeah. Okay. All right. Have a blessed day. Take care. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank
Om.
you, Ma.